House will be in session. Mr. Cook, Ms. Ma, Mr. Knight, you all notice the absence of a quorum. Will the sergeants please prepare the chamber, contact the absent members. Clerk, please call the roll.
Adams, Amiano, Anderson, Arambula, Bell, Bill Berryhill, Tom Berryhill, Blakesley, Block, Blumenfield, Brownlee, Buchanan, Caballero, Calderon, Carter, Chesbro, Conway, Cook, Cotto, Davis, Delatorre, DeLeon, DeVore, Duval, Emerson, Ang, Evans, Fewer, Fletcher, Fong, Fuentes, Fuller, Furutani, Gaines, Galgiani, Garrick, Gilmore, Hagman, Hall, Harkey, Hayashi, Hernandez, Hill, Huber, Huffman, Jeffries, Jones, Knight, Krikorian, Liu, Logue, Lowenthal, Ma, Mendoza, Miller, Monning, Nava, Nastandi, Nilo, Nielsen, John Perez, V. Manuel Perez, Portantino, Ruskin, Salas, Saldana, Silva, Skinner, Smythe, Solorio, Strickland, Swanson, Torlixon, Torres, Tarico, Tran, Valines, Yamada, and Madam Speaker.
Members, a quorum is present. I'd like to ask our visitors and guests in the gallery and in the rear of chamber to please stand for this morning's prayer. Assembly Chaplain Father Constantine Papadimos will lead us.
Good morning. Let us pray. Lord, you have promised to give us two things. First, a means to escape the sinful corruptions that eat away at our soul, and second, the opportunity to participate in the divine nature. Lord, grant us victory over our struggles, over the temptations and allure of what this world offers us in contrast to you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. This morning, Mr. Amiano will lead us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Everyone may be seated. We'll move on to the reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Monday, August 17, 2009. The Assembly met at 12 noon. Honorable Lori Saldana, Speaker Pro Tem of the Assembly presiding. Chief Clerk E. Dawson Wilson at the desk. Assistant Clerk Timothy Moreland reading. The roll was called. Assemblymember Evans moved the quorum. Call of the Assembly. Motion carried. Time 12:01 p.m. The Speaker Pro Tem directed the Sergeant at Arms to close the doors and to bring the absent members. At 12:22 p.m.
Mr. Todico moves. Mr. Blakesley seconds. The reading of the previous day's journal will be dispensed with. Presentation of petitions, there are none. Introduction and reference of files will be deferred. Of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read. Any amendments deemed adopted. We have no messages from the Governor and no messages from the Senate. In just a moment, we will move on to motions and resolutions. There are no absences today. Mr. Todico.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Under motions and resolutions, I request unanimous consent to allow Assembly members Conway, Gilmore, Hagman, and Yamada to have photographers on the floor today.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to allow Assembly members Gilmore and Hagman to have guests at their desks during session today.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to allow the following members to adjourn in memory of individuals today: Mr. Davis, Mr. De Leon, Mr. Gaines, Mr. Garrick, Mr. Hall, Mr. Hill, Mr. Knight, Mr. Krikorian, Mr. Nielsen, Ms. Salas, and Mr. Silva.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to refer SB 477 by Senator Flores from the Appropriations Committee to the Rules Committee pursuant to Assembly Rule 96.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, at the request of the author, I request unanimous consent to rescind the floor vote on July 16, 2009 on SB 251 by the Senate Transportation Committee and return the bill to the third reading file.
That was 251?
SB 251.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, at the request of the author, I'm giving one-day notice of intent to remove the following bills from the inactive file. File item A-16 ACR 75 by Victor Manuel Perez, and file item A-17 SB 19 by Senator Smidian.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to return the following bills to the consent calendar. File item 104 SB 133 by Senator Corbett. File item 105 SB 470 also by Senator Corbett.
Without objection.
Madam Speaker, at the request of the author, please move file item 9 AB 120 by Ms. Hayashi to the inactive file.
Clerk will note. Without objection.
Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to re-refer SB 830 by Senator Wright from the Appropriations Committee to the Rules Committee pursuant to Assembly Rule 96.
Without objection.
And finally, Madam Speaker, I request unanimous consent to re-refer file item 64 SB 483 by Senator Corbett to the Rules Committee pursuant to Assembly Rule 97.
Without objection. Members, I'd like to direct your attention to Mr. Hagman. Today is his first day as our Republican assistant floor leader, I believe. And in addition, he has another special occasion to celebrate. Mr. Hagman?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I'd like to introduce my son, Jonathan Hagman, who's California's newest teenager as of today. So he's turned 13, and Jonathan's here to join us today. Thank you.
And Mr. Gilmore, you have guests in the chamber. Would you like to introduce them?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Here, Chase. I have the pleasure of introducing to you my youngest grandson, Chase, and he just turned 6 years old, and he told his grandmother and I the day after his birthday that he's soon going to be 7 years old. So I'd like everyone to welcome my youngest grandson, our youngest grandson, one of the pride and joys of our family, Chase Gilmore. Thank you very much.
Members, we will now begin business on the daily file. Beginning with second reading, clerk will read. We have no second reading bills. We'll move on to concurrence. Members, if you have bills on concurrence, if you have bills on third reading, please be at your desk. We are taking up business on the daily file. Members, before we take up business on the daily file, we have some additional guests with us today. Ms. Yamada would like to introduce interns from her district office. They are here to observe the session. Ms. Yamada.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Like many of you over the summer, I hope you've encouraged the participation of young people in civil and civic discourse. I am proud to introduce today 4 of my interns, 3 in the district office and 1 in the capital office. First, in the district office, I have Andrew Benware. You can stand up, Andrew. Thank you. Cameron Johnson. Thank you, Cameron. And Tadao Koyama. Andrew is returning to school at Willamette University. Cameron will be returning to school at Tennessee State. And Tadao Koyama will be returning to UC Santa Cruz. Also, I'd like to introduce Ian Blair, who is with my Capital Intern Program. Ian is already a graduate of Sacramento State, and I've been very proud to have all of them with me this summer and hope that they will come back. I also had Katie Kokas, just so you know I didn't just have guys in my office. I had Katie Kokas, who was the youngest of our interns who could not be with us today. She is returning as a high school student, and so very proud of each of them, and I thank you for your attention today. Thank you, students.
So thank you, Ms. Yamada. Now we will return to our concurrence items. Beginning with file item 1, Ms. Brownlee. Members, if you could please return to your desks and direct your attention to Ms. Brownlee. We're taking up our first file of the day. Ms. Brownlee, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 239 by Assemblymember Brownlee and others, an act relating to teacher credentialing.
You may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 239 will streamline credentialing for teachers and counselors with National Board certification, streamline credentialing for National Board teachers who teach English learners, and increase access to special education credentialing programs by allowing district intern programs to offer all types of special education credentials. The Senate amendments clarify that the measure does not change the existing requirement for all teachers to attain the CLAD authorization, which is required to teach English learners. I ask for your aye vote to concur in the Senate amendments.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 61, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 2 is passed temporarily. File item 3. There you are. Thank you. Mr. Anderson will present on file item 3. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 873 by former Assemblymember Price and others, an act relating to vehicles.
You may open, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, AB 873 passed off the Assembly floor on a consent earlier this year. We've made some minor technical changes in the Senate. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 64, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We move to file item 4. Mr. Fletcher, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 931 by Assemblymember Fletcher, an act relating to health facilities.
You may open, Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, AB 931 will increase the statutory limit on pharmaceutical drugs stored in emergency kits at California's long-term care facilities. This will help those facilities sustain themselves in the event of an emergency and will bring us in compliance with FEMA standards. This bill was modified slightly in the Senate to improve the bill. It's received no votes, and I would respectfully request an aye vote. Thank you.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 64, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We move to Mr. Ruskin, file item 5. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1169 by Assemblymember Ruskin, an act relating to continuing care contracts.
Mr. Ruskin, you may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is back for concurrence. AB 1169 is related to continuing care retirement communities, or CCRCs. The Senate amendments narrow the scope of the bill to require that a CCRC's annual report state how a project or purpose is consistent with the provider's tax-exempt status. The Senate amendments also delete controversial language defining the term reserves. With these amendments, the Senate approved the bill unanimously. There's no known opposition. I ask for your aye vote in concurrence.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 61, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We move to Mr. Eng, file item 6. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1515 by Assemblymember Eng, an act relating to vehicles.
Mr. Eng, you may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 1515 is back for concurrence. This measure simply requires that the Department of Motor Vehicles use the already existing DMV electronic lien and title program. The amendment in the Senate adds licensed dealers and other stakeholders to those the Director of the DMV will consult with in developing a mandatory ELT program. The measure was on consent all the way through the Assembly and Senate with no votes. I respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 66, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 7, Mr. Solorio, is passed temporarily. File item 8, Mr. Furutani. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 37 by Assemblymember Furutani and others, an act relating to public post-secondary education.
You may open, Mr. Furutani.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Members of this august body, I am pleased to present Assembly Bill 37 for concurrence. AB 37 has received no votes thus far and in fact passed our own assembly with a vote of 79 to 0. AB 37 calls upon our higher education institutions to confer honorary degrees to individuals whose studies, not to mention their lives, were disrupted because of our country's unjust wartime policy directed at Japanese Americans during World War II. In the time since AB 37 passed this House, the University of California Board of Regents voted to award honorary degrees to these college Nisei in a manner consistent with the requirements of this bill. But the fact remains that while all institutions in which these former students were enrolled have had the opportunity over the past 60 years to honor this class of individuals, only a handful have done so, thus the need for AB 37. The amendments taken in the Senate makes clear that any ceremony to confer honorary degrees under AB 37 can be done in conjunction with a previously scheduled commencement ceremony, thus alleviating costs associated with the bill. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 65, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 9 has been removed from the active file. File item 10 is passed and retained. File item 11, Mr. Calderon. Passed temporarily. File item 12, Mr. Emerson. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 501 by Assemblymember Emerson, an act relating to Penniston.
You may open, Mr. Emerson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senate amendments eliminated the audit provisions for the medical board by the Bureau of State Audits, and instead the Office of State Audits and Evaluations within the Department of Finance to make available the review of the medical board's financial status. They also made clarifying changes in the provisions that allow a medical doctor from another state or country to use the title MD. And lastly, it clarified that any person who knowingly provides false information regarding a limited medical license be sanctioned appropriately by the board. I ask for your aye vote on concurrence in Senate amendments.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 68, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We move back to Mr. Furutani. File item 13. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 506 by Assemblymember Furutani, an act relating to state teachers' retirement.
You may open, Mr. Furutani.
Madam Speaker, members, I am pleased to bring before you AB 506, which ensures CalSTRS compliance with the IRS and also extends the sunset dates for the post-retirement earnings limit exemptions. The technical amendments made in the Senate correct a drafting error and would have allowed the existing earnings limit exemption to exempt retirees under the normal retirement age of 60 from the 60-month break-in service as well, which was not the intention of this legislation. AB 506 provides important tools for federal compliance and for retirement for former staff to meet the ongoing demand for experienced, knowledgeable educators in our schools. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 68, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 14 is pass and retain. File item 15 by Mr. Hill. It's ready to take that up. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 906 by Assemblymember Hill and others, an act relating to conflict of interest and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
You may open, Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Oops,
I rise to ask
strike
for...
the roll. Just a moment.
I love it. Thank you. And so I asked for an aye vote in concurrence. No, I don't trust you.
There is concurrence on both sides, but we will allow you to present the bill.
Thank you,
Mr.
Madam
Hill.
Speaker. I rise to ask for your vote on concurrence with Senate amendments to AB 906. This bill amends Government Code 1090 to address existing conflicts that preclude local government bodies from entering into energy efficiency contracts with investor-owned utilities when a member of that body is employed by the investor-owned utility. AB 906 will help local governments take advantage of existing energy efficiency programs without violating the laws that prohibit the economic conflict of interest by adding a 16th item to the list of remote interests. This bill has bipartisan support. I respectfully ask for concurrence.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll again. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 67, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 16 is passed temporarily. File item 17 by Ms. Ma. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1143 by Assemblymember Ma, an act relating to vital records.
You may open, Ms. Ma.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, AB 1143 is a cleanup bill to legislation chaptered in 2007, AB 102, which allows couples to obtain the surname of their choice when marrying. The Senate amendments address the Department of Health's technical concerns and clarify how the middle name field on the marriage license form may be used. AB 1143 has received bipartisan support, has had no votes, and has no oppositions. Thank you. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on these Senate amendments.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 65, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 18 is pass and retain. File item 19 is pass and retain. Takes us to file item 20. Mr. Smythe is ready to take that up. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1464 by Assemblymember Smythe and others, an act relating to transportation.
You may open, Mr. Smythe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This here bill will authorize the Department of Transportation to establish an advisory committee to develop a process for recognizing and promoting bicycle routes of national, state, or regional significance. This bill has had bipartisan support, no opposition in the Senate, and ask for an aye vote in concurrence.
Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 65, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. Mr. Davis, prepare to take up file item 21. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1457 by Assemblymember Davis and others, an act relating to long-term health care facilities.
You may open, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This bill, AB 1457, will require in the state of California all licensees of skilled nursing facilities to provide the contact information of the ownership to all of its residents, and additionally to require all of that said information to all residents when there is a change of ownership. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 66, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We continue to file item 22. Mr. Smythe, once again, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1463 by Assemblymember Smythe, an act relating to high school graduation.
You may open, Mr. Smythe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 1463 would allow high school students who have met all of their graduation requirements and all of their military obligations to wear their dress uniform in their high school graduation ceremonies. This bill passed out of this body 76 to 0, received support, again, unanimous support in the Senate. The amendments were technical in nature. Ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 67, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We move to file item 23. Mr. Eng, clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1510 by Assemblymember Eng and others, an act relating to public schools.
You may open, Mr. Eng.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 1510 returns to the Assembly for concurrence a few simple amendments that will help clarify that the bill will not create any additional costs through local mandates. As we all know, communication between parents and their children's teachers and the school is absolutely vital to the educational process. How often too often parents are denied the opportunity to be engaged in their children's education because of language barriers. This bill is an important step in removing those barriers. The measure was on consent all the way through the Assembly and the Senate with no votes. I respectfully request your aye vote.
Seeing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 68, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We'll go back in our file to file item 7, Mr. Solorio. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 20 by Assemblymember Solorio, an act relating to public post-secondary education.
You may open, Mr. Solorio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. AB 20 is before the Assembly for concurrence with Senate amendments. AB 20 is a simple bill that streamlines government, saves cost. It would require the CSU and urge the UC to work with DGS to establish model contract standards for research projects. It would save at least $2 million annually. It passed off the Senate floor on consent and is supported by both the CSU and the UC. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 69, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. items 24 through 30 will be continued. We're now at Assembly third reading. File items 31 and 32 will be continued for now. File items 31 and 32 are passed and retained. We move into our Senate third reading. File item 31 is passed temporarily. File items 32, 33, 34, and 35 are passed and retained. That takes us to file item 36. Mr. Duvall is prepared to take that up today on behalf of Senator Correa. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 40 by Senator Correa, an act relating to Social Security numbers.
You may open, Mr. Duvall.
Madam Speaker and members, this is a Correa bill. This is personal information. It restricts the use of the full Social Security numbers in public records by limiting the recording of documents after January 10th of 2010 to include only the last 4 digits of the security numbers and a whole lot more. I urge for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Aye 63, no 0. The bill passes. Members, I'd like to direct your attention to the rear of chamber today, where Assemblymember Conway is welcoming the Honorable Mayor of Tulare, Craig Vejvoda, I believe is the way the name is pronounced. Mayor, welcome to Sacramento. Yes, Ms. Conway.
Madam Speaker, if I might, it's actually Mayor Craig Vejvoda, but you were close. You did better than most. Craig is the mayor of one of the larger cities in the 34th Assembly District, and I'm honored to have him here with us, and thank you all for welcoming him.
We'll continue with our third reading file. We'll go back, we passed temporarily on file item 31 by Mr. Ruskin. He's prepared to take that up. Clerk will read.
House Resolution 11 with amendments by Assemblymember Ruskin.
You may open, Mr. Ruskin.
Thank you, Madam.
These are on amendments, I believe.
This is amendments, yes.
Very well.
I'm amending House Resolution 11 to include chlorine as well as chloramine so that we request both disinfectant alternatives to be studied. There are other minor amendments. These amendments were worked out by the interested parties. I ask for an aye vote on them and that the bill go out to print and be placed back on file.
Very well, members, we can do a voice vote on these amendments. All those in favor of adopting the amendment signify by the usual sound of aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The bill is out to print, back to file. File items 37, 38, 39, 40, 41 are all passed and retained. That takes us to Ms. Lowenthal. Ms. Lowenthal, are you prepared on file item 42? Passed temporarily. That was Senator Lowenthal. Mr. Blumenfield is taking up the bill on behalf of Senator Lowenthal. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 728 by Senator Lowenthal with amendments by Assemblymember Blumenfield.
You may open, Mr. Blumenfield.
Madam Speaker and members, I respectfully request adoption of technical amendments intended to prevent changes made by this bill from chaptering out changes that are made by my bill, AB 1186. So technical changes, chaptering out. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Blumenfield. This is on amendments, members. Mr. Hagman?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We object to these amendments and request a roll call vote.
There is an objection on the amendments, on adopting them, so we will do a roll call vote to adopt the amendments. Clerk will open the roll on the amendments. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. This is on the amendments, members. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 43, noes 21. The amendments are adopted. The bill is out to print, back to file. We move to file item 43 by Senator Liu. Mr. Emerson will present that. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 629 by Senator Liu, an act relating to work of improvement.
You may open, Mr. Emerson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Senate Bill 629 limits the payment a project owner can retain from a prime contractor and what the contractor can withhold from a subcontractor to 5% of the contracted work. This ensures that the general contractors and subcontractors would be paid in full once they satisfactorily complete the work on their project. SB 629 was amended in the Assembly Judiciary Committee to satisfy concerns of the home builders of the California Building Industry Association. 40 states, including California, limit retention for public sector projects. 10 states limit retention in the private sector. The construction industry already benefits from reduced or zero retention on state and federal projects. General contractors typically retain 10% of the monies owed the subcontractor until the entire project is complete. So a subcontractor who satisfactorily completes his work early must wait and be paid sometimes up to 3 years later. These days, subcontractors are even more at risk, with some major projects being abandoned midstream. Circulating this money promptly back into the economy will stimulate the economy and provide jobs. This is a bipartisan bill that passed the Senate on a 31-6 vote. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 43, noes 12. The measure passes. File item 44 is passed temporarily. File item 45 is passed and retained. File item 46 is passed temporarily. 47 is passed and retained. Takes us to Mr. Solorio on behalf of Senator Correa. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 549 with amendments by Assemblymember Solorio.
You may open on the amendments, Mr. Solorio.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Speakers. This bill authorizes the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology to collect gender, language, and ethnicity data from new licensure applicants and renewal licenses. The amendments at the desk would make provisions for licensees to voluntarily provide such information, and also would require the board to keep the information collected from applicants and licensees as confidential. These amendments remove any pending opposition. I respectfully ask for your aye vote for these amendments.
Seeing no objection on the amendments, we can take those up by voice vote. All those in favor of adopting the amendments signify by the usual sound of aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The bill is back to print, out to print, back to file. File item 49 is pass and retain. File item 50, Mr. Liu for Senator Wright. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 285 by Senator Wright, an act relating to attachment.
You may open, Mr. Liu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 285 is a simple bill. It will add to California law the existing federal law protections prohibiting the attachment or seizure of a veteran's disability benefits. This bill is needed because civil court judges nationwide, including some courts in California, have ignored federal law and attached these benefits. Very often these payments are only assets a veteran may have. SB 350, this bill is supported by a long list of veterans organizations across the state, and there's no opposition to the bill. Requested aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 71, no 0. The measure carries. File items 51 through 55 are pass and retain. We'll take up file item 56. Mr. Fuhr will present for Senator Calderon. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 109 by Senator Ron Calderon, an act relating to auctioneers.
You may open, Mr. Fuhr.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. SB 109 is a bill without opposition by Senator Calderon. It would enact changes designed to protect consumers who bid at auctions of real property. The auctions at issue here are the large ones held at convention centers and other large venues around the state where hundreds of foreclosed properties are auctioned off on the same day. California currently lacks laws to protect consumers at these auctions, and the author has received complaints from people who have placed bids at these auctions and confused why their winning bids were ultimately rejected by the owners. The bill would address the causes of this concern in a couple ways by enabling consumers to have a clear understanding of the terms of these auctions and acknowledging that they're able to get refundable deposits back in a reasonable period of time if their bid is not accepted. Urge an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 48, noes 20. Measure carries. File item 57 is pass and retain. Mr. Fuhr once again for Senator Lowenthal. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 115 by Senator Lowenthal, an act relating to public employment.
You may open, Mr. Fuhr.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. This bill creates a religious exemption to California's loyalty oath. As many people are aware on this floor, last year, 2 Cal State instructors were denied employment because they believe language in the current oath requiring them to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, conflicted with deeply held religious views, Quaker views, that urge that they refrain from violence. This bill allows public employees to decline to take the current oath based on religious convictions, provided they sign an alternative statement. And that alternative statement commits them to uphold the Constitution and fulfill the obligations of their employment. We shouldn't be asking people to have to confront the choice between violating basic tenets of their faiths and performing employment at the Cal State or other similar institutions. As long as they agree to uphold the laws of this state and fulfill the obligations of their employment.
I urge an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 43, noes 22. The measure passes. Takes us to file item 59. Ms. Hayashi for Senator Calderon. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 237 by Senator Ron Calderon, an act relating to real estate appraisers and making an appropriation therefore.
Ms. Hayashi, you may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 237 provides regulatory framework for appraisal management companies, creates a registration for these companies within the Office of Real Estate Appraisers, requiring the individuals in charge of these companies to undergo background checks. The bill has received bipartisan support in both houses. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 50, no 7. Measure passes. File item 60, 70, or 60, 61, 62 are pass and retain. File item 63, Senator McLeod, Mr. Emerson will present. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 11 by Senator Negrete McLeod, an act relating to county employees in retirement.
You may open, Mr. Emerson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Senate Bill 11 by Senator Gloria Negrete McLeod is a district bill that allows the San Bernardino County Employee Retirement Board to invest post-retirement health benefit funds. This bill gives local agencies an additional investment option as they begin to fund long-term health care benefit liabilities. This bill has had extensive protections and reporting requirements for agencies investing with San Bernardino County Employment Retirement Association. This bill does not set benefit levels. That is done by an investing agency. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 58, noes 8. The measure passes. Mr. Torrico is prepared to take up file item 64 for Senator Corbett. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 43 with amendments by Senator Torrico.
You may open, Mr. Torrico.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On a procedural matter first, earlier today I had made a motion to re-refer this bill to the Rules Committee. Would like to rescind that action first.
I'm sorry, Mr. Torrico, this is not on file item 64. This is going back.
Related to file item 64.
Right,
this is under motions and resolutions
Thank
first.
you. All right. So you wish to rescind a prior motion?
Rescind the prior motion whereby the bill was referred to the Rules Committee pursuant to Assembly Rule 97. So rescind that action.
Mr. Hagman, without objection, clerk.
That puts the bill.
All right, so we have rescinded the previous motion, and this bill is now eligible to take up. So you wish now to present on SB 483?
Yes, Madam Speaker, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. On the amendments, these amendments would designate parts of the city of Fremont as a new enterprise zone in our ongoing efforts here in the legislature to keep the NUMMI car factory open in Fremont.
Very well. So this is on the amendments, members. Mr. Torrico is just presented the amendments. We can do this on a... All right. Just confirming, we can do this on a voice vote. All those in favor of adopting the amendments signify by the usual sound of aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Bill is out to print, back to file. Yes, Mr. Tarico.
On the same bill, Madam Speaker, if we can return to motions and resolutions, I would now like to request unanimous consent to re-refer file item 64, AB 483, to the Rules Committee pursuant to Assembly Rule 97.
Without objection, Mr. Hagman? Without objection. Continuing through the file item 65, pass and retain. That takes us to Mr. Cotto, file item 66 for Senator Romero. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 359 with amendments by Senator Cotto.
You may open, Mr. Cotto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Rise to present amendments to SB 359. These amendments would double joint the bill with AB 1540 from the Assembly Health Committee. It would add to the index of exemptions from the Public Records Act exemptions currently found in the law in relation to the Division of Workers' Comp and make other technical changes. Request the bill be sent out to print and put back on file.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll.
Sir, are you?
Are these? My apologies. These are on amendments. We can do this on a voice vote. All those in favor of adopting the amendments signify by the usual sound of aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Bill is back to print, back to file. File item 67, pass and retain. File item 68, Mr. Solorio. Prepared to take that up for Senator Calderon. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 314 by Senator Ron Calderon, an act relating to crime victims and making an appropriation therefore.
You may open, Mr. Solorio.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. The Victims Restitution Fund is funded by penalties and fines levied against perpetrators of criminal acts. As members are well aware, the Restitution Fund has been threatened with insolvency, which could jeopardize the needs of victims being met. SB 314 states that when back-owed restitution payments are referred to the Franchise Tax Board for collection, that these payments would be assigned a higher priority than payments that go to other government entities. It is essential we do everything we can to ensure payments continue to come into this fund. Additionally, SB 314 allows the Victims' Compensation and Government Claims Board the flexibility to allow for higher payments for victims for relocation when the board deems it is appropriate. SB 314 is supported by various victims advocacy groups such as Crimes Victims United and the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Aye 72, no 0. Measure passes. File items 69, 70, and 71 are pass and retain. Once again, Mr. Solorio, file item 72 for Senator Wright. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 156 by Senator Wright, an act relating to insurance fraud.
You may open, Mr. Solorio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Insurance fraud in California totals an estimated $15 billion each year. It costs consumers an average of $400 annually per resident via higher insurance premiums. This bill allows insurance companies to share information about insurance fraud acts and trends with the Department of Justice without risking antitrust lawsuits. This bill also allows insurance fraud investigators to share information and thereby reduce the incidence of fraud. There is no opposition to this bill, and it enjoys the support of insurance, peace officers, and employers. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Aye 68, no 0. The measure passes. We move to file item 73. Mr. Torlakson will present on behalf of Senator Cox. These are for amendments. The clerk will read.
Senate Bill 249 with amendments by Assemblymember Torlakson.
You may open on the amendments, Mr. Torlakson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, amendments attempt to address the opposition. They do address the opposition to this bill It will make meningitis information that is already provided online by the Health Department optional and not mandatory. They clarify that the Department of Education may make the information on meningitis and vaccinations available to school districts in their annual distribution of information. I urge adoption of these amendments so they can be put out to print and back on our file. Thank you.
Seeing no discussion on the amendments, members, we can do this on a voice vote. Mr. Hagman, do you have an objection to adopting the amendments?
Yes, Madam Speaker. At the request of Mr. Fuentes, I've given a one-day notice of intent to remove file item. Oh, without objection. I'm sorry. I'm reading my notes here.
Okay. On this item, no objection on adopting them by a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by the usual sound of aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The bill is back to print, out to print, back to file. That takes us to file item 74. This is a resolution Ms. Evans will present for Senator Wiggins. Clerk will read.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 5 by Senator Wiggins and others relative to the federal Gulf of the Farallones and Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuaries Boundary Modification and Protection Act.
You may open, Ms. Evans.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this resolution is to express California's support for H.R. 223, written by Congresswoman Lynn Woolsey, and SB 212 by Senator Barbara Boxer. What those bills pending in Congress would do is expand an existing marine sanctuary at the Gulf of the Farallones and the Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuary. What it means is that this would allow revision of the current ecological management plans and permanently protect them from oil spills and pollution. And these are some of the most biologically rich underwater areas in the entire world. So they are definitely in need of protection. This measure is supported by Environment California, Oceana, Aquarium of the Bay, and the San Francisco Joint Venture. There is no opposition, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Mr. DeVore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Just to be clear, when you're voting on this measure, if you vote to approve this measure, you are voting to make America more dependent on imported oil and gas from nations, many of whom don't like us, and some of whom use the money that we ship to them to fund terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, we need more oil and gas production domestically. And the record of environmental safety of the modern oil and gas extraction industry is exemplary. There have been enormous advances in technology that have caused this industry to be completely different than it was 40 and 50 years ago when essentially your grandfathers were operating these platforms. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's be a little more circumspect about putting more of our own natural resources off limits. America needs America's energy. I would recommend a no vote.
Seeing no further Mr. Nava.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This is just a reminder that regardless of the Star Wars technology that the oil companies like to tell you they have for cleanups, at the end of the day, it is men and women dressed in hazmat suits with buckets and straw, sopping up the crude from the beaches. The coastal economy is a $40 billion a year industry. Commercial fishing, recreational fishing, visitor serving, all of that is at risk with increased offshore oil drilling. What there are many of us that are attempting to do is to preserve and protect California's economy. Because California's oil, believe it or not, doesn't stay in California. This isn't like Las Vegas. What happens there stays there. California oil is sold on the world market. And so I ask for a yes, I vote on this measure. Please help us protect our coastline.
Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Evans, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The only point I would add is that this area provides natural habitat protection for a number of increasingly endangered species, including salmon and steelhead. And many of us know in excruciating detail how the fisheries industry has simply virtually collapsed on the North Coast because of the conditions under which salmon and steelhead live and unfortunately die. It also provides protection for seals, sea lions, and the California gray whale. This is an important biological region for the entire world, not just the state of California, not just the United States, but the world, and I would ask for an aye vote.
All discussion having ended, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 46, noes 23. The resolution is adopted. File items 75, 76, and 77 are pass and retain. That takes us to Ms. Hayashi, file item 78 on behalf of Senator Yi. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 242 by Senator Yi, an act relating to civil rights.
You may open, Ms. Hayashi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 242 would make an express violation of the Unruh Civil Rights Act to adopt or enforce a policy that restricts, limits, or prohibits the use of any language in business establishment unless that language is justified by a business necessity and notification has been provided of the language restriction. The courts have long held that someone who is discriminated against on the basis of language can allege violation of Unruh protection against national origin. This bill does not specifically add a new protected class. This bill merely takes a class which has an implied protection and makes it an express protection. The amendments taken in the Assembly Judiciary Committee clarifies that this bill is not intended to impose an additional duty on a business to provide customer service in a particular language. This bill does not apply to policies or rules regarding the employment relationship between businesses and its employees. This bill is about protecting the right of everyone to speak the language of their choice, including English. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. DeVore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This measure is yet another full employment act for California's attorneys. At a time when some 2,000 productive taxpayers are leaving this state every week, and while California has about 32% of the nation's welfare caseload with only 12% of the nation's population, this is the last sort of thing that we need to do to put additional burdens on business and make them bigger targets for lawsuits that would claim discrimination. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an enormously high unemployment rate. It's getting worse. Why are we seeking to add to the already crushing tax and regulatory burden in this state to make it even less hospitable for individuals to start and operate a business in the state of California? Ladies and gentlemen, this measure is a job killer. We need more jobs in California, not less. And if an employer believes that it is in their competitive interest to have individuals that work for them that are proficient in English as they deal with their customers, then they ought to have the right to hire those individuals that they believe they need for the job. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill will make California's worsening unemployment rate even higher. I urge a no vote.
Mr. Arambula.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a clarification on the previous comments. As I understand this bill, there would be no violation of the Unruh Civil Rights Act if the policy by the employer is justified by a business necessity. If it's necessary for the business, if it's helpful for the business, they may enforce and implement such a policy. If it is not related or in furtherance of a business a necessity, then that would be otherwise. So I just wanted to make that clarification. It would not in any way hinder any legitimate operation of a business in California.
Thank you, Mr. Arambula. Mr. Calderon.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, members, I rise only because this has been a long-standing irritation to me, and that is the language question. If you go to Europe, every European you meet speaks at least 2 languages, if not 3 or 4. And it's always struck me as bizarre that in this country we discourage speaking of other languages. And it seems to me that we need to redefine our definition of literacy to include someone is literate if they speak 1 or more, or at least 2 or more languages. And I think that this is, while you know, who knows what the language in the bill and how it will be interpreted and what drag it will place on the economy, and it may address or place some drag on the economy. The idea here is to not be afraid of people who speak more than 1 language. I think it's an asset to be able to speak more than 1 language, and so I think it encourages good policy. We'll work out the details in the courts. I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Calderon. Ms. Yamada.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I also rise in support of this item. I think there are 2 assurances that we can give, one that has already been articulated, that in no way does this measure remove what is called the BFOQ, bona fide occupational qualification, that is already established in case law. And secondly, that perhaps by welcoming other languages into business establishments, there is a large measure of economic diversity, and the color is green. You know, if you invite people to come to your business by welcoming them in other ways, your business may thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yamada. Members, if you could, it's getting a bit noisy. Ms. Hayashi is prepared to close now, seeing no further discussion. Oh, one moment, Ms. Hayashi. Mr. Anderson.
I rise in opposition. I just want to have a point of clarification. I owned a business. I owned it for a number of years. If I thought I could make more money by hiring people that spoke Swahili, I would have hired them, because I was in the business of maximizing profit. I didn't need the state of California to tell me what languages I needed to go with. So most businesses are in the business of making a profit, and if they think they can make more profit by offering additional languages, that's what they'll do. I ask for a no vote.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Seeing no further discussion, Ms. Hayashi, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This is a business-friendly bill because this bill will give businesses clear guidance as to what is acceptable. And the existing law already allows an individual to sue under the Civil Rights Act if they believe that they were being discriminated against. So this bill allows the business to be business-friendly. It is not a job-killer bill. And if you read the bill says that the businesses are under no additional obligations to provide services in a particular language. The bill basically says that if you go to a retailer or into a business, and if you speak some other language other than English, that they can't be discriminated against. It's already the existing law, members. So I encourage you to read the bill. It doesn't do what some of the colleagues talked about. The bill, I just want permission to read, Madam Speaker. Just want to read one sentence in the bill so that you are very clear that this is a business-friendly bill. Nothing in this section shall be construed to impose a duty on any business establishment to provide customer service in a particular language. That's already in the bill. This is a good civil rights bill. I respectfully ask for your aye vote today.
All discussion having ended, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes, ayes 43, noes 25, the measure passes. We move now to file item 79. Mr. Tran will present for Senator Corbett. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 510 by Senator Corbett with amendments by Assemblymember Tran.
You may open on the amendments, Mr. Tran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise today with amendments to SB 510 by Senator Corbett. SB 510 is a consensus bill regarding structured settlements. The amendments are technical and clarifying in nature. I ask that the amendments be adopted, sent out to print, and back to file. Thank you.
Members, we can do a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor signify by the usual sound of aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Amendments are adopted. Bill is out to print, back to file. File items 80, 81, and 82 are pass and retain. File item 83 is passed temporarily. File item 84 is pass and retain. Mr. Fury, prepared to take that up? File item 84. Oh, 85. Thank you. You have two in a row here. 84 is pass and retain. File item 85. Mr. Fuhrer for Senator Wolk. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 660 with amendments by Assemblymember Fuhrer.
You may open, Mr. Fuhrer.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. SB 660 will ensure that senior citizens considering a reverse mortgage are fully informed about the product and provides that lenders offering reverse mortgages to seniors will be held to a duty of honesty, good faith, and fair dealing. These amendments are merely technical in nature. Specifically, to avoid a chaptering out problem, the amendments make conforming changes to a single provision of the bill that overlaps with a single provision of my reverse mortgage bill, AB 329. Urge an aye vote on the amendments.
Mr. Hagman, do you oppose a voice vote is fine on the amendments? Very well. We can do a voice vote, members, on the amendments by Mr. Fuhrer. All those in favor signify by the usual sound of aye. Any opposed? I think the ayes had it. The amendments are adopted. Bill is back to print, out to print, back to file. File item 86 and 87, pass and retain. File item 88 is passed temporarily. 89 is passed temporarily. File item 90 and 91 are pass and retain. File item 92 is pass and retain. Mr. Torlakson, are you prepared on file item 93, Mr. Yee's bill? Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 300 with amendments by Assemblymember Torlakson.
Is this on the bill or on the amendments, Mr. Torlakson?
Thank you. These are amendments.
These are amendments? Very well. You may open on the amendments.
Thank you. These are technical amendments requested by the Business Transportation Housing Agency. The amendments affect some operational matters of the Board of Pilot Commissioners. The amendments delete the collection of unnecessary information. They delete a restriction on the recruitment of qualified maritime personnel to serve as Executive Board Director. I urge an aye vote for these amendments.
On the amendments, Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We object to these amendments and respectfully request a roll call vote.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote on these amendments. Members, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. This is on the amendments for SB 300. All members vote who desire to vote. This is on the amendments, members. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 23. The amendments are adopted. Bill is back out to print, back to file. We move to Ms. Buchanan for Senator Corbett. File item 94. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 305 by Senator Corbett, an act relating to school facilities.
You may open, Ms. Buchanan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 305 requires the Office of State Architecture to update the inventory of public school facilities that do not meet the minimum requirements of the 1976 Uniform Building Code and that need to be seismically retrofitted. The information will be used by the Department of State Architecture to update eligibility criteria for funding from the school's seismic mitigation program. That in turn will allow the Department of the State Allocation Board to approve funding for the most critical projects needing seismic repair, which will also allow our students to be in safe school facilities. I respectfully request your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 19. The measure passes. File item 95 is pass and retain. 96, 97, 98, 99 are pass and retain. We move on to file item 100, Ms. Hayashi for Senator Maldonado. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 741 by Senator Maldonado, an act relating to security services.
You may open, Ms. Hayashi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 741 establishes a regulatory framework and enforcement provisions for registration and training of in-house security guards. SB 741 would grant the Bureau of Security and Investigative Services enforcement authority over private security officers and their employers. This measure has received strong bipartisan support in both houses, in the Senate and the Assembly. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 55, noes 3. Measure passes. File items 101, 102, 103 are pass and retain. File items 104 and 105 are passed temporarily. 105 is pass and retain. File item 106, 107 are pass and retain. That takes us to Mr. Torlakson. On file item 108 for Senator Yee, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 340 with amendments by Senator Torlakson.
You may open, Mr. Torlakson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill is back. It was passed off this floor. The Senate received it and then made some technical amendments, sent it back. There was no opposition before. It deals with consumer notification of repeat product orders and repeat charges on certain products. Urge an aye vote for this good consumer protection measure.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. Oh, this is on amendments. We can do a voice vote on those. All those in favor signify by the usual sound of aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Bill is out to print. Back to file. File item 109 and 110 are pass and retain. File item 111 is pass and retain. Takes us to Ms. Brownlee for Senator Pavley. File item 112. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 520 with amendments by Senator Brownlee.
You may open, Ms. Brownlee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We've already voted and passed on SB 520, but there's a non-substantive code section conflict with two other bills, and so SB 520 must be amended to change its code section. I respectfully ask for your aye vote in this simple procedural amendment.
On the amendments, we can do those with a voice vote. All those in favor signify by the usual sound of aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Bill is out to print. Back to file. File item 113 and 114, 115 also are pass and retain. That takes us to file item 116, pass temporarily. Is that what Members, we temporarily passed on file items 88 and 89. We'll return to those now. Mr. Torrico is prepared to take up file item 88 for Senator Correa. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 398 with amendments by Senator Torrico.
You may open, Mr. Torrico.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. SB 398, the amendments make various clarifying additions and deletions to the bill relating to the authority of cities and counties that have taken on fire code enforcement in mobile home parks. Respectfully ask for an aye vote on the amendments.
Seeing no discussion on the amendments, we can adopt those by voice vote. All those in favor signify by the usual sound of aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Bill is out to print, back to file. File item 89, also Mr. Torrico. For Senator Corbett, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 95 by Senator Corbett, an act relating to vehicles.
You may open, Mr. Torrico.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. SB 95 members addresses a problem that has been created by the current state of our economy, and we've seen a growing problem of car dealers selling or trading cars that have been taken in as trade-ins and then selling the cars without paying them off. This bill addresses the problem by requiring dealers to pay off the liens of trade-in vehicles before they can be traded or sold, and this has to occur within 21 days of the vehicle being traded in. I respectfully ask for an aye vote on this measure, Madam Speaker.
Seeing no discussion, Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Ayes 41, noes 15. The measure passes. We'll continue to file item 116. Assemblymember Caballero will present. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 102 by the Senate Committee on Local Government, an act relating to validate the Organization Boundaries Act's proceedings and bonds of the public bodies, and to provide limitations of time in which actions may be commenced, and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
You may open, Ms. Caballero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. SB 102 is the second of the legislature's 3 annual validating acts. We have passed similar measures every year for nearly 70 years to protect the integrity of the state and local bonds and boundary changes. These bills cure minor errors in bond issues and annexations, but they don't forgive fraud or corruption. Because of these bills, bond councils can issue legal opinions attesting that California bonds are free from inadvertent errors. Strong bond opinions result in higher debt ratings. Higher debt ratings result in lower interest payments, and lower interest rates save money for our taxpayers. There is no opposition. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Ayes 65, noes 0. Measure passes. We move to file item 117. The vote was 65 ayes 65, no 0 on the urgency. Ayes 65, no 0 on the measure. We move to file item 117. Once again, Ms. Caballero, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 103 by the Senate Committee on Local Government, Act to validate Organization Boundaries, Acts, Proceedings, and Bonds of public bodies, and to provide limitations of time in which actions may be commenced.
You may open, Ms. Caballero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This here bill is the third of the legislature's 3 annual validating acts. We've passed similar measures for nearly 70 years to protect the integrity of the state and local bonds and boundary changes. Again, these bills cure minor errors in bond issues and annexations, but they don't forgive fraud or corruption. Because of these bills, bond councils can issue legal opinions attesting that California bonds are free from inadvertent errors. There's no opposition, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the votes. Ayes 65, no 0. The measure passes. We return to some bills that were passed over temporarily. Members, if you are prepared to take up your bills and we passed over them temporarily earlier, please return to your desks so we can go back and complete our file for today. We'll return to motions and resolutions. Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At the request of Mr. Fuentes, I am giving a one-day notice of intent to remove file item A20, SB 827, from the inactive file.
Without objection, clerk will note. Members, we can take up some bills that we did pass temporarily earlier. The following file items we passed temporarily. Also, I'd like to welcome former Assembly Member Mr. Ramirez. Welcome back to the chambers. I saw you sneaking out. Former Assembly Member Rudy Ramirez is with us today. Let's welcome him to the chambers. Up here in the front talking with Mr. Torrico. Welcome, Mr. Ramirez. There's no one here to welcome him. All right, file items. The following file items are eligible to take up. Please be at your desk to take these up. File items 44, 47, file items 11, file item 39. Mr. Logue, I believe you're prepared to take up file item 39. Members, if you would please direct your attention to Mr. Logue. He is taking up file item 39 for Senator Ashburn. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 636 by Senator Ashburn, an act relating to vehicle license fees.
You may open, Mr. Logue.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I have my supporters standing behind me. This bill has passed through the Senate unanimously. It will provide legislative relief for Nevada County from a spending complication resulting from the interaction of a locally passed ordinance and state requirements included in the February budget. The state requires VLF revenues to be spent on public safety. Local ordinances require 50% of VLF funds to be spent on roads. This bill would state that the additional revenue resulting from VLF fees not be deemed to be part of the revenues subject to a local ordinance which mandates 50% of the roads to be spent on local roads. Madam Speaker, I ask the House to support this bill. Thank you.
Seeing no debate or discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 54, noes 0. The measure passes. Mr. De Leon is prepared to take up file items 44 and 47, beginning with file item 44. Oops, pardon me. Mr. De Leon, I'm sorry. Which file items were you wishing to take up? File item 46. There we go. For Senator Pavley. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 257 by Senator Pavley, an act relating to lactation accommodation.
Mr. De Leon, you may open.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, SB 257 requires every state agency and department to notify female employees when nearing maternity leave of current lactation accommodation law and provide a list of support organizations. There are no new costs to the state associated with this measure. SB 257 is sponsored by the California Women, Infants and Children's Association and is supported by many women's organizations as well as medical, labor, employee, and professional association. There is no opposition to this measure on both sides. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Ms. Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise in support of this bill. The health benefits of breastfeeding are well known and documented for mothers and child alike. It enhances the health of the mother and of the child. This bill would require state agencies and state departments to provide information on lactation accommodations within their departments to expectant state employees. If our state government departments and agencies have made accommodations for breastfeeding, then it makes sense that we should not let those accommodations go unused because women do not know about them. Colleagues, for those of you who do not like state mandates on businesses, that's not what this bill is about. This bill gives the legislature this bill is the legislature giving direction to state departments and agencies, which is highly appropriate. Through this effort, our state departments and agencies may be able to keep breastfeeding moms at their jobs and their children stronger and healthier by simply providing information that will help moms continue to breastfeed once they resume working. I'd urge your aye vote.
Seeing no further discussion, Mr. De Leon, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I urge an aye vote.
Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 12. The measure passes. We'll return to file item 44 by Mr. Smythe. For Mr. Fletcher. For Mr. Fletcher. Senator Alquist, clerk will read.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 36 by Senator Alquist and others relative to adolescent health.
You may open, Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. SCR 36 by Senators Alquist and Strickland, and no doubt supported by Assemblyman Smythe as well, encourages Californians to support efforts to improve adolescent health through education and outreach efforts to prevent chronic disease, early treatment of chronic disease, and ensuring updated immunizations against preventable disease. I would ask for an aye vote.
Seeing no discussion, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the votes. Ayes 58, noes 0. The measure carries. Members, we will move on now to adjourn in memory. We are not going to adjourn. We do have a recess coming up, though. Several members have asked to adjourn in memory. So if the following members can be prepared to do that, we have Mr. Davis, Mr. De Leon, Mr. Gaines, Mr. Hall, Mr. Hill, Mr. Knight, Mr. Krikorian, Mr. Nielsen, Ms. Salas, and Mr. Silva. So we will do these in that order, beginning with Mr. Davis.
Madam Speaker and members of the State Assembly, today I rise in adjournment motion of Iris Johnson Bright, a young woman from the Los Angeles area who was a law school graduate of UCLA School of Law and a Master of Business Administration from the Anderson School at UCLA. Iris was an attorney who really enjoyed her work and enjoyed fighting for the freedoms of individuals. And she served as a assistant professor at Charles Drew University, as well as she served as a professor of business at West Los Angeles Community College. Throughout her experience, she was very happy to not only do her job that she was paid for, but also took pride at helping community residents throughout the South Los Angeles area. Her memorial service will be tomorrow at Academy Cathedral in Inglewood, and her service, her dedication and passion to justice and fairness will be sorely missed in our community. And again, I respectfully ask that we adjourn in her memory.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Please bring the information to the desk so it can be included in today's daily file. Once again, members, if you have requested to do an adjourn in memory, please be at your desk. I see many members are not here to do their request. We can go to Ms. Salas. You've made a request to adjourn in memory.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. It's with great sadness that I adjourn in the memory of Gregory Paterno Alabado. Mr. Alabado, or Greg as he was known to many of us, joined the Navy as a non-U.S. citizen under a special treaty between the United States and the Philippines. He served his country honorably for over 21 years and retired in 1975 as a chief warrant officer. Greg earned a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in business administration and a law degree, all while working full-time and raising a family. He worked for the City of Chula Vista Public Works Department for 19 years, where he was responsible for the development of the Chula Vista transit system. Throughout his life, Greg was an active participant in his community, serving on numerous boards and commissions and championing issues impacting the Filipino-American community. He was instrumental in ensuring the efforts of Filipino-American veterans that were properly recognized at the San Diego Veterans Museum and Memorial Center. In 2003, the City of Chula Vista recognized Greg for his exemplary volunteer work in the community by bestowing him with the Botterman Humanitarian Award. Greg is survived by his wife, Felicitas Ramos Alabado, sons Gerald, John Alabado, and daughters Rosemary Lawson and Annette Hunt. We extend our sympathies and prayers to the family.
Thank you, Ms. Salas. Please bring the information to the desk. We'll go on now to Mr. Gaines.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I rise to adjourn in memory of Brett Bushnell, who lived a very short life and died at age 20. And his family is a good friend of our families. And he was a child that struggled in life and had real challenges in trying to succeed in school, and real challenges in terms of trying to find himself. He was kind of a nonconformist. He didn't really fit into any particular group. My children tried to reach out to him to the extent that they could, but it's always sad when you lose someone at age 20 in their life and all their potential is limited at such an early stage within their life. So our prayers and thoughts go to the family. There is a lot of frustration within the family. They're still not certain in terms of how the death occurred. So I would just ask that we adjourn in memory and that our thoughts and prayers would be with Brett Bushnell and his family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines. We go to Mr. Knight.
Madam Speaker, I rise with a heavy heart to express our sadness. We have had 11 servicemen in the Antelope Valley die in the theater of battle in Iraq, and now we have joined the unenviable list of people who have died while serving, fighting in Afghanistan. Lance Corporal Javier Olvera is our 12th serviceman to die battling in the theater in Afghanistan and Iraq. He was killed August 8th in Helmand Province amid a campaign being waged by the Marine Corps against entrenched Taliban elements. It was always Corporal Olvera's realization that he wanted to belong to something, to belong to a cause larger than himself, and that carried him to the Marine Corps. He served in the 2nd Battalion, 8th Marine Regiment, based at Camp Lejeune, and often referred to as America's Battalion. Lance Corporal Olvera will be missed and is survived by his mother and father and his 2 brothers. Our thoughts and prayers are with the family.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. Once again, be sure your information is brought up to the desk to include in our journal. Mr. De Leon, you had requested to do an adjourn in memory.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is with great sadness that I rise to adjourn in the memory of Ernestina Durazo. Mrs. Durazo came to the United States in 1942, and she raised 11 children while working in the fields under the worst conditions and in the canneries of California. As an integral part of the Guadalupano Society of Our Saint Lady of Carmel Church, Mrs. Durazo, as well as her husband, were lifelong and devoted leaders. She served as a Eucharistic minister for over 40 years. Just 3 years ago, she lost her husband, Felizardo Moreno Durazo, whom she was married for more than 62 years. She is survived by 9 sons and daughters: Carmen Durazo, Dolores, Eli, Alicia, Sharif, Alonso Durazo, Mariana Durazo, John Durazo, Elizabeth, and Ricky, as well as Marilena Durazo, the current Secretary-Treasurer of the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor. She had 22 grandchildren and 17 great-grandchildren. Her memory will live forever in the hearts and minds of those who knew her, especially those who knew her very well, since she was a great woman. My thoughts and prayers go to her and her family and the many loved ones. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. De Leon. Mr. De La Torre?
Thank you. I also rise to recognize or acknowledge the passing of Evangelina. I went down to the services on Tuesday, the wake, and it was moving to see all of the children speaking and telling their stories. It's always a moving thing to be able to get a picture of someone through their children's eyes and through their friends' eyes. There were also members of the Guadalupana Society who got up and spoke about her dedication to her church. And it was clear that the two dominant factors in her life were church, the Catholic Church, and service to members of the church, and her family. It was quite a simple approach to life, and you could feel the peace and the love in that room from all of the children and the other people the grandchildren who were there as well. And I also wanted to add my condolences to the family in recognizing the passing of Evangelina Durazo. Thank you.
We'll move on now to Mr. Hall.
Madam Speaker and members, I rise today to adjourn in the memory of Miss Mary Henry. Ms. Henry was a civil rights activist who helped create the National Head Start program and fostered the rise of the Martin Luther King Jr. King Drew Medical Center from the ashes of the 1965 Watts riot. Ms. Henry passed away last Friday. She was 82 years old. Her lifelong work to provide quality education and social services to the poor was honored by presidents, honored by governors and mayors over more than 4 decades, and left a very huge mark on the community and her name on facilities treating the needy. Ms. Henry served on President Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty Task Force that led to the Health Start program that brings nutrition and early childhood education to inner city children. She was best known for her work catering to local needs as a director of the Avalon Carver Community Service Center in South Los Angeles, Watts Willowbrook area. She also served 3 terms with the Compton Unified School District Board of Trustees, where she pressed fellow trustees to more aggressively tackle drug and gang problems and to build up poor children's self-esteem. She is survived by 3 sons, Louis, Craig, and Paul, brother Raymond Bradshaw, sister Joan Shaw, and Geraldine Pye, and 5 grandchildren. Mrs. Henry was a very near and dear friend, and certainly the people of Compton and Los Angeles will miss her dearly. She was loved by so many people, and I'm honored to adjourn in her memory. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Furtani, also for Ms. Hall? I'm sorry, for Ms. Henry?
Yes.
Yes, one moment, Mr. Hill. He'll be next.
Just very briefly, I want to join Mr. Hall relative to adjourning in memory of Ms. Henry. I was on the Los Angeles Board of Education while she served on the Compton Unified School District Board. We had adjoining districts, really a champion for those that needed the education advocacy in all of our communities. She's going to be greatly and dearly lost by all our communities, and I just wanted to join Mr. Hall in this memory as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Furtani. I believe Mr. De Leon wanted to add as well.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to join both my colleagues, Mr. Isidore Hall as well as Mr. Warren Furtani. I also knew Ms. Iona Henry very well when I was with the California Teachers Association, and she was an integral member of both CTA and the United Teachers of Los Angeles. I just had the privilege and the honor to work closely with her just recently at the California Democratic Convention up here in Sacramento, as she is the chair of the Resolutions Committee. Her guidance and her wisdom greatly assisted me during these past few months, especially at the CDP, and I'm greatly saddened and wish to convey my deepest condolences to the Henry family. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. De Leon. Now we go to Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Michael Monazon, a great guy, a resident of Hillsborough, passed away on August 8th. Integrity is everything. was the motto of this wonderful man who lost his battle to cancer at the age of 63. Born on April 12, 1946 in Marin County, he leaves behind a devoted family, including his wife, Kathy Monazon. Michael had a long and award-winning career that spanned over 40 years. He was a highly respected member of the real estate community on the San Francisco Peninsula as a partner of Prudential California Realty in San Bruno. Michael served as president of the local Association of Realtors and the California Association of Realtors. He has been recognized 3 times by the San Mateo County Board of Realtors as Realtor of the Year. Michael frequently gave large donations anonymously to local schools and charitable organizations. He was a man of passion for many things, including the San Francisco 49ers and the San Francisco Giants. Michael loved spending his time with his family in Yosemite, Lake Tahoe, Las Vegas, and Carmel. He was deeply loved and respected by many people and will be profoundly missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Mr. Nielsen.
Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the Assembly, I rise requesting we adjourn in memory of Ron Koenig, longtime resident of Red Bluff and then later Elk Grove. Began his career as a highway patrol officer, then ascended to be the sheriff of Tehama County for some 9 years. He professionalized the sheriff's department in that small county, did some revolutionary things in terms of community services available to individuals who had committed crime and tried to redirect their energies. He then was appointed by Governors Duke Mason and then later Wilson to chair the Board of Prison Terms, the predecessor of the now Board of Parole Hearings, and he served many, many years as the chairman of that body, and I was honored to succeed my friend Ron as chairman of the Board of Prison Terms many years later. When they moved to Sacramento, Ron and Pat, to assume his duties chairing the Board of Prison Terms, Pat started her own business. They maintained a residence up in their native county, Tehama, and are revered there, ladies and gentlemen. Ron Koenig was a devoted public servant, one who made a big difference in criminal justice in the state of California. And it's somewhat ironic today that we may be debating some major changes. And this is the day that we're honoring a man who participated in making us a safer state. I hope we honor him today in a proper way. Ron Koenig, Godspeed.
Thank you, Mr. Nielsen. Members, we have one final request to adjourn in memory, and then we will begin a recess. It will take about an hour. We will have some business to continue to take care of, though. There will be a recess under call. But before we do that, we are going to our final adjourn in memory request of the day by Mr. Silva. If you could please conclude your conversations and direct your attention and your respect to Mr. Silva.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is with sadness that I rise and ask my colleagues to adjourn today's meeting in memory of Dr. Ed Dundon, who passed away last year. And we waited until today to adjourn in his memory because his wife, Amy Dundon, who is up here in our audience, was able to be here. Dr. Dundon was the superintendent of the Garden Grove Unified School District. He was one of the youngest superintendents in the state of California. But I think even more than being the superintendent of a school district, he was very proud to serve his country as a combat Marine veteran in Korea. You know, when we meet our spouse for the first time, we always remember the first time that we met him or her. And I think a lot of times we've met people in our life that have a great deal of influence on us, and we can remember when we first met them. You don't wake up in the morning saying, well, I'm going to meet somebody that's going to be my wife or my best friend or have a great deal of influence. But when I met Ed Dundon for the first time, I didn't realize the effect that this man would have on my life. When Orange County went through the bankruptcy, Dr. Dundon had retired. He had a home in Hawaii, and I asked him, I said, I would like you to...
Members, if you could please offer your attention and cease your conversations in the chamber during the adjourn in memory. We have family members of the person who's being discussed. If you would please direct your attention to Mr. Silva.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. He has a new home in Hawaii. He's looking forward to a retirement, and I asked him if he would work in Orange County to make sure that our schools were going to be funded throughout this bankruptcy. And he agreed. It would be at least a year of his time, full-time, 50, 60 hours a week with no pay. And he went in to make sure that every single school district in Orange County was covered and there would not be any type of a financial burden on that school district. Well, one of the districts had borrowed money. And our treasurer in Orange County at that time, John Morlock, said, well, they borrowed money and they took a gamble that it would pay off. They lost. They should not be allowed to recover that money. So we were in closed session, and that was brought up. Bill Steiner, the supervisor, said, well, what about Irvine School District that borrowed money? And I remember Ed Dundon, he took his fist and pounded on the desk, and he said, we're not about to make some third-grade child suffer because of a school board making a bad decision. He didn't exactly say it that way, but that was the point that he made. And I just look back at what a great school district Garden Grove Unified School District is because of the efforts of Ed Dundon, and I'd be very honored if we could adjourn today's meeting in memory of Dr. Ed Dundon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. All remaining requests to adjourn in memory should be delivered to the desk to be added to today's journal. We are going to go and take a recess under call. So you are able to go to your offices. Please do not leave the building for any extended period of time. We will reconvene in about 1 hour. We are now under recess.